If you're looking for a place to visit, look no further, I got you covered. Hey again, it's Tyler Mitchell, and today I want to give you some information about visiting London. We're going to go over places to visit or landmarks to see, methods of travel, ways to get from point A to point B, and a few important facts that you should know when you're visiting merry old England. Now, there are a lot of things that you need to know when you're planning to travel to another country, the most crucial of which is knowing where you want to see. Makes sense, doesn't it? Even if you've never been to London, you've undoubtedly heard of a few key places such as Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, or the Tower Bridge. Here's a few interesting facts about each, so that hopefully you'll want to add them to your list of places to see. First of all, we have Big Ben. It's a giant clock inside London. Big Ben is the name that most people call it these days, but it was actually called Great Bell when it was first made. And it first started ticking on May 31st, 1859. Another place you've heard of, and probably would like to see, would be the Queen of England's home, Buckingham Palace. It was originally built for the Duke of Buckingham's wife, and then was later transformed into a palace by George IV in 1826. Now also, the Queen's not the only person who lives here. It's also home to a few other prominent people, such as the Prince, the Duke of York, and the Count and Countess of Essex. Another landmark you might want to see is the Tower Bridge. It's located nearly in the center of London. It's a very, very famous English sight to see. It was constructed in 1894. Now that you have a few ideas of where you'd like to visit, let's look at how to get from point A to point B. There are many methods of travel in London, such as the tube system or taxis or even your own 2 feet. First we'll cover the most common and the cheapest, which is walking. London's a giant city, but they are on an island, so most buildings are close together, if not completely attached to each other. And walking is the preferred method around London. It seems to be the cheapest. It's actually totally free. You can't beat that. You may not always want to walk the distance to your destination, or you might not be able to. It might be too far away because London is a large city. But since it is so large, you may use a tube system if you want to travel the great distance. The tube is a subway system that runs beneath London and all over the city, and with a great many number of stops, you'll be able to get to your destination very quickly, no matter where it is around the city, and it's pretty cheap. If you prefer traveling above ground, you could always hire a taxi. Above ground travel means that you'll get to see more when you're heading towards your destination, other landmarks along the way. However, there's a lot of traffic. You have to deal with all the congested London traffic. With the city being so large and so many pedestrians, you're going to spend a lot of time moving at exactly 0 miles per hour, which isn't very fast. We can now successfully travel places, so let's look at a few extra tips and little tidbits that you might need to know that'll help you along the way while you're traveling outside of the U.S. There are a lot of differences between the U.S. and the U.K., so knowing some of them I think will help greatly whenever you're traveling abroad. For instance, which way would you look when you're crossing the street? In the U.S., you drive on the right side of the road, and the opposite is true for England. So in America, you're taught to look left, then right, then left again before you cross the street to make sure it's safe to cross. If you're going in London and you were to look left first, then you would only see the trunks of the cars that have already passed you. You might step out into the road and then be hit by oncoming traffic if you weren't sure which direction to look. So you should look right first, then left, then back right again to make sure that it's safe to cross. Next, and now this may sound silly, but do you have the proper currency? England uses the pound, whereas the U.S. uses the dollar. If someone were to try to pay for their meal in the U.S. with a pound, it wouldn't be accepted because that's not the currency that we use. And the same can be said for England. Ignoring the exchange rate, the dollar over there is means about as much to us as it does to them. It's basically a worthless piece of paper if you don't have the correct currency for the country that you're visiting. Now lastly, do the words that you're saying have the same meaning that they do elsewhere, the same connotation? Now even though we speak the same language, there are a lot of words that they say that they use a different word for than we do to describe something. For instance, like an apartment for them would be a flat. If they say sausage over here, it's a banger over there. So if someone were to ask you if you wanted some bangers and mash, and you didn't understand that that meant sausage and potatoes, you'd probably say no, regardless of how hungry you are. Instead of 18-wheeler or semi-truck, they use lorry. Again, if you were going to cross the street and someone told you there's a lorry coming, you'd be like, okay, who's that? And then walk across the street, you might get hit by a truck. It would not be enjoyable. Or instead of bathroom, they use loo, which this could be confusing and rather uncomfortable if someone's telling you where the loo is and you don't understand that the loo is the bathroom and they're actually explaining where you want to go. You just can't figure that out. So there's a few interesting tips there. Hopefully they'll help you when you're trying to visit London. So whenever you plan your trip to London, just remember these tips, that it's important to know what you want to see and to know how to get there. Thank you for listening.